Welcome back, everyone. We're going to get straight on to the next session, which is on closing the loop. So far, the closest thing, we're going to get to a functioning pancreas, so it's all very exciting. We have three speakers here to tell us all about it. We've got Eric from Diabeloop, and I learned how to pronounce that name like 5 seconds ago, so I hope I done it right. We will also hear from Mark from Medtronic and Garrett from Tidepool. But without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Eric.
Hello everyone, thanks for inviting us. Eric Haneker, CEO, co-founder with Leelarathne, the diabetologist of Diabeloop. So Diabeloop is, here we go. Diabeloop was an offshoot of an idea that was initially done by a non-profit in France, kind of an unusual non-profit of both patients and doctors that have a very large non-profit called Choudhary, and work with a research center called CAIT, created a company, did a number of clinical studies, developed the system, our own algorithm, our own user experience, and got the CE marking for GLG1 back in November. And then right now we're preparing the integration of Dexcom G6 shortly, keeping all regulatory steps, and then head over to commercialization in France and a number of other European countries. So what does the system look like? Okay, another Dexcom G6, Bluetooth over to a handset. The handset is a lockdown device, unlike a smartphone, because a smartphone is not a smartphone for cybersecurity reasons. And then we have an insulin pump, and here's the Lala pump, it's a small patch pump, water patch pump. The data is sent over via a secure end-to-end API to a server, control account data, etc., where the patient then decides to share data or not with his doctor, spouse, father, whatever. It's interesting that this part here, we actually mostly use Tidepool code. So we actually contributed a large number of codes to Tidepool. For example, all the internationalization and translation capability of Tidepool is basically Diabeloop engineers that contributed within the open source framework of Tidepool for that. Now we did translate all the servers, it's on our own servers in Europe, etc., but it's mostly Tidepool code. So this is what it looks like physically in person, and the system is what the main page looks like. It's not a fully closed loop, this is not need to tell the system that you're eating. For instance, you would really of it. You could not announce it, but your vacuum control might not be great. You have 10 parameters. Of those, it's really, there are 6 that are really important. You can set your own target, and you set your, what we call reactivity. In other words, every person has a different sensitivity towards, do I care more about my average glucose, and do I want it lower, running the risk of sometimes having a hypo, having to take respiratory? Some people want to go that way, and some people want to go to, I never want to have to take respiratory or hypo, and if I need to have slightly high average, that's fine. So for every meal, and for a normal glycemia, a hyperglycemia, you can set that personal reactivity. That's going to tell the algorithm, hey, this is how I want to do. Built with patients, a number of patients that even gave us insights that said, hey, this is what I really like with this system. One of them is Zenloop, which initially we thought, from a technical perspective, is not really complicated, but it's like really helpful. The closed loop is still a patient user's body. So even if there's a system running that controls the system, it seems control. One of them is people say, yes, sometimes I'm stressed, I'm in a weird situation, I'm on the highway, I'm driving with my kids in the back, I'm in weird times, etc. I just want the system to leave me alone. I'm okay having slightly high average, but just want no hypo, no alarms for a set amount of time. People just press the Zen mode, and then by default for 3 hours, we adjust it to system is just to make sure that nothing happens, no hypos, no alarms. Keep it going. Also, you might want to share data with your spouse or doctor by default.
Would you mind using one of the handheld mics, because it's quite hard to hear you at the back? Thank you.
Better this way?
That's better, thank you.
You might want to share your data with your doctor or spouse by default, and then sometimes have a weekend off, or do something where you don't want your doctor to see that data. And some doctors are fine with it, some might be a little paternalistic. And so you can say, okay, for the next day or 3 days, don't upload anything. When I say anything, it's nothing will be uploaded whatsoever for that period of time. Again, might seem small, but it's actually quite important to think of how you're going to live with it every day. Behind it, user experience is key, but you still need a robust algorithm. It's really complicated, but it actually needs to be, because every person's physiology is different, every person's lifestyle is different. So you've got the safety layer, you've got your short-term loop with the machine learning. You know the thing about artificial intelligence and machine learning give great results, but sometimes really screws up. It's also true here. So sometimes this machine learning, artificial intelligence, doesn't get it, and so it hands it over to what we call an expert system, of which part of this were inspired by the OpenAPS system. Not all of it, but part of it. So that's a short-term loop, and then you have a long-term loop to adapt the physiology over time, be it meals or profiles or anything like that. Interesting to note, you don't enter your basal profile except for safety purposes into the system. You just enter your the amount of insulin you typically have per day, your typical meals, and your weight, and your personal preferences that I talked about earlier. And then the system will learn and over time adapt to your own physiology and lifestyle. Does it work? It actually did. This is a presentation that was shown at ADA in June 2018. First arm of a crossover at home, 70 people, 3 months. Time in range, time in hypo, less than 70, and then the mean glucose. And then when you think about, the Pratik of hypos, complications, and burden or mental weight, or however you want to call it, that's not shown in the clinical results data, but we have really good feedback about that, about people just being able to sleep. But to anyone that has used OpenAPS or any of the DUI systems, that won't come as a surprise. And then behind it, there's lots of math and work and computers burnt out and all kinds of things and patents, but that's less important. And I'll be happy to take questions right after.
Hello again, everyone. So my name is Mark. I'm here from Medtronic again. I'm a nurse and technical consultant who works with Medtronic in central London. So some of you might recognise me if you're on any Medtronic products. And obviously we're here to talk about the closed loop today, so as always first we have to talk about the Medtronic MiniMed 670G self-management system. Get this full time. Okay, so this is obviously a hybrid closed loop product. So the first thing we actually need to speak about is time in range. A1C is always traditionally used as your measure of control in diabetes, but as anyone here will tell you, if you've got a high blood sugar and a low blood sugar, that will average out to a good average A1C. If we talk about time in range, so for instance between 3.9 and 10 millimoles, if you're maintaining control between those two numbers, you're going to get a good A1C as part of that package no matter what. So it does, in the terms of having continuous glucose monitoring, when you're seeing all this data continuously, it does make more sense to talk in terms of time and range rather than the A1C. So as we've just got to demonstrate it down there how you can have two very different profiles come out with pretty much the same A1C. So this is just a little bit of the history from Medtronic about where we've been and where we're going in terms of the closed loop. It's always been a priority of us ever since the very first system came in. It's a smart card there. Maybe it wasn't called smart card then, but it was now part of the smart card family. Where we had the VO pump and the suspend on low. So you came down to the low limit, put stop, delivering insulin, and made a noise until you told it, yes, I've acknowledged that, done something about it, and restart. We then came round to the suspend before low. So we're the first system on the market that had a predictive low glucose suspend system. So this system would monitor the glucose, the sensor glucose release continuously. When it predicted we were in 30 minutes of a high pulse, it would automatically suspend insulin delivery and restart it when the sensor glucose release came back up to a safe level. And now we're into the 670G, which is the smart card program. So this is having an algorithm which completely takes care of basal delivery every 5 minutes based on sensor feedback from our new Guardian sensors. It is a hybrid closed loop as well, of course, because with this system you also have to tell it when you're going to eat, how much, 10 minutes before you eat it. You're not going past that. Your insulin is not active, it's given, so you still have to try and let it know before. And of course, in the future, we will be looking at closed loop completely. Okay. And this is the components of the system. So we have the new 670G insulin pump, which does look very similar to the 640. We still have the Control Nextly 2.4, which everyone will be familiar with. We've got our CareLink software for the uploading of the pump, just gone through many facelifts in the past few months. The insulin delivery, we've got up to 6 infusion sets to make sure that we've got something that each patient can use. And the new Guardian 3 sensor for the continuous glucose monitoring component, all provided by Medtronic. Okay, so just a little bit on the basics of the system and how it works. We'll be out the side if there's further questions because we can spend hours talking about this. So basically, the 670G, we have a manual mode where it's pretty much like a 640G. We do a calculation based on your insulin use, we program in basic rate, and the pump runs that for the first week or so while also running continuous glucose monitoring, and it starts to learn your responses to the individual doses of insulin. Once we activate the auto mode, the basal delivery is then completely controlled by the smart card technology. So we can deliver basal insulin in micro doses every 5 minutes. So that's like having 288 dosing potential points in a day. And it replaces the manual mode basal rate delivery. So your manual mode kind of sits there as a safety net, and then the pump takes over. It's got a set target of 6.7 as a target, which will aim to keep blood sugars between 4 and 10. And you can do a temporary target of 8.3. So let your blood sugars come up if you are planning some exercise and you want to make sure you don't drop too low during the exercise. Well, the auto mode will go a long way to preventing that. As I mentioned, you can still do food and correction boluses. If you've gotten sick or for some other reason you have rapidly increased your blood sugars, you can still take a blood sugar, give it to the pump, and it will still offer a correction, bringing you back down to target ranges. And I mentioned on this side as well, there are some licensing components of the 670 system as well. You have to be over 7 years old, on more than 8 units of basal delivery in 24 hours, and it's not licensed in pregnancy. The target is still a bit high. And this is what you might see as part of running the 670 system. It's actually quite surprising to me how often the system will actually just not deliver insulin in order to keep you between those target ranges. And it will ramp it up and decrease it or stop it as it's necessary, keep between 3.9 and 10 levels. So this is just a little screen shows you the differences between the systems. So in manual mode, the pump pretty much acts like you'd expect from the 640. You can even do the smart card protection on low, so for that week while the system's learning you, it can still suspend the insulin and prevent hypoglycemia. Once it's being turned on, the auto mode will then just show this is blue shield with your current sensor glucose reading, and of course trend arrows for the information to say which way you're going up or down. If for any reason this auto mode cannot continue to function, if the sensor is not calibrated or it runs too high for too long, for example, the pump will bounce itself out into a safe mode to give you a notification that's happened. So the safe mode takes a look at what's been going on with your insulin delivery, predicts a 90-minute basal rate, just set based on your past readings, to give you that 90 minutes to correct the feature that actually bounces you out the overload. It's a very simple to access screen on the pump. You go down the list, if it's not ticked, that's the problem. If it says take blood sugar, you take the blood sugar, the overload will come back on. So we also have the new Guardian CGMS system that came out with the 670G system, and it is also compatible with the 640 system as well. So this is a new improved accuracy and duration of wear. It's called the Guardian 3 link transmitter and the Guardian sensor. So it has an intelligent diagnostic chip in it, which really helps with the stability. So it's able to tell when the reading's on quite right, it's able to request the calibration when it needs to do one, and we've actually licensed it for the arm this time now as well. So previously, as people know, it was always the abdomen and the bottom where our sensors. So now it's on the arm. We've actually got an average NARD of 8.7% when worn on the arm. So very accurate. And just as part of the accuracy, we did some very simple engineering really. The old end-like sensor, all your active enzyme was on the end of the sensor. So if that wasn't embedded correctly, the sensor simply read wrong. By splitting the enzyme into 3 sections, the reference at the very end, the Guardian sensor is much more able to tell if it's sighted correctly, if it's moving, or if there's going to be any inaccuracies in its actual sensor readings. So the system might ask just for a confirmatory BG just to make sure that everything's reading okay, because it is completely controlling that background insulin delivery. So we've also got the CareLink system, which is the final part of all the components. So the device can be uploaded on Personal as normal. We've got the new uploader file on CareLink as well, which makes it compatible with anything with a USB port these days. Once that upload is done, it is stored in our CareLink Personal database, so you can access that whenever. And you can view the reports whenever, going back to any download that you've ever done. And print process. If you so choose, you can link the system with the CareLink system in hospitals as well. So that means that if you upload at home, you can come to the hospital, you can view your reports with the doctor or nurse right there. You can upload before you come in, you can do it as you get there, and we've all got visibility of exactly the same reports. So we did a little while ago line these out so that everyone is seeing the same reports, no matter if you're in hospital or you're in home. And of course, yes, the device must be uploaded in the hospital as well. And I'm not going to go into any detail on these, it's nice glazing over. So we've got new CareLink reports as well, so some of them we recognise are all adherence report, device settings and logbooks. But because the 670 does do much more, we've got some new reports. The assessment progress is very good, it clearly shows your time and range here, and you overlay a couple of weeks to see how your control is improving from time point to time point. Because it's not much you can really adjust in your system, we also do a weekly review of your meal progress. It does tend to only be your active insulin value or your carb ratio that tends to be out and causes further hypos or hypers on the system. So it does narrow down any need for basal testing or anything like that. And we of course had this system out for a year in the United States before we came to the UK, and we had a pivotal trial where we analysed 15,000 real-world users of the 670G system with CGMS over the course of 1 year. So what we actually took from this was your average time and range across all age ranges was 72.2% of the time in real life. So that's about 17 hours a day between 3.9 and 10 millimoles without any action. This shows obviously reductions in A1C, as we would normally expect from the study with pump, but critically, unlike any other study that is involved in therapy, this system had 0 severe hypoglycemia. So the reduction we're seeing is not because people are running too low, we're seeing it because it's a genuine improvement in control. And there was actually also 0 reported episodes of DPA in 15,000 patients over 1 year on this system. So the safety aspect is in there as well. And this is just some of the time and range optimized. You can see the time and range in green there. So obviously ages 7 to 13, not such great control. They do improve from 56% of the time to 65. And the adults, age 14 plus, go from 66.7% in time, that's with the smart card, the old smart card on 640, up to 72.2% time in range. So it just shows even if people aren't fully compliant with the system, you do still get control. And this is just stretched a little bit more by age range, so it's 64% for the 13s, 61 for the 14 to 21-year-olds, comes right up for the 22 to 60-year-olds, and 61 plus year olds with the stars of the show, they managed 75.5% time in range. So on average, that all came out at 72.2. Any quick questions? And over then, and we're outside if anyone's got any further questions on how the pump works.
Right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Garen Heason. I'm a device engineer at Tidepool. We're a US-based non-profit developing open source software for people with diabetes. We're a remote company, meaning that we're kind of based all over the world. Most of our team is based in the US, but we've got a guy in Canada, we've got someone in Australia, like myself based in Swansea in the UK. And this over here is kind of our current retrospective data analysis software, where you can upload all your various diabetes devices, and you can see all your data in one place. You can download your data. We believe that patients should own their data, so your data is yours. It's also free for patients and their care team and clinicians and clinics. As you can see there, it's basically allows you to see your CGM traces, see your blood glucose monitor data. You can see your insulin pump data, including your boluses and basal rates and carbohydrate intake and so on. My work is working on the Tidepool uploader. So this is a piece of software that runs on macOS and on Windows, and it basically allows you to upload all your different diabetes devices. It provides the necessary drivers and things that you need in order to connect to your devices. So basically, you just plug in your device, log in, click upload, and your data goes into the Tidepool platform. We are currently supporting Dexcom's CGMs, including the G4, G5, and G6, Abbott's Libre, Medtronic pumps, insulin, Omnipod, tandem pumps, Animas pumps, as well as various meters, including the Essential meters, Abbott meters, One Session meters, Video meters. And we're busy working on adding more meters all the time. So for an updated list, have a look at tidepool.org/devices. As a quick aside, I'm actually working on implementing the Roche AccuCheck meters at the moment. And just to come back to something that was mentioned during an earlier session, I'm actually working from a device standard, an IEEE standard, in order to work with the Roche meters. So I need to shout out to Roche to making sure that their stuff is standardized, and they've worked very hard to both contribute to and make their pumps adhere to the current standards out there, including the USB standards and the Bluetooth standards. It's the first time that I'm actually working from a standard instead of having to work from a proprietary specification, where we first, of course, we need to have an agreement in place with the manufacturer. Right, so we're not here to actually talk about retrospective data analysis software. We're here to talk about closing the loop. Now, I first want to talk about what we call DIY Loop, which is the current open source automated insulin delivery system that is out there. Can I just see by show of hands how many people are using Loop? Okay, quite a few. All right, that's good. So basically, what Loop does is it predicts your future glucose based on your basal rate schedules, your carbohydrate intake, your insulin on board, your current continuous glucose monitor readings, and so on. And then those glucose forecasts provide people with the information needed then to recommend a temporary basal rate to attain a targeted glucose range in the future. Now, currently, in order to be able to use Loop, you need to compile it yourself using Apple's Xcode. That requires an Apple developer license that you probably need to pay for. It also requires a separate piece of hardware called the riding link, and it also includes an old out-of-warranty Medtronic pump. So it's not ideal. We've actually got lots of people at Tidepool using Loop, either themselves or for their loved ones. But if you want to learn more about Loop, have a look at loopdocs.org. So this is basically the hardware that you currently need for DIY Loop. So you need Loop, which is a piece of hardware that translates Medtronic's proprietary communications protocol to Bluetooth so that it can communicate with the iPhone. You also then need a Medtronic pump, and you need a CGM. So this can be either Medtronic's Lala CGM that then talks to the pump, then talks to the routing link, then talks to the phone, or you can use Dexcom's G5 and G6 that of course talk directly to the phone, or you can use the G4 with the receiver in order to be able to talk to the phone as well. And then of course there's an Apple Watch app as well, which then allows you to input your bolus, from which you can bolus, or you can input your carbohydrate intake as well. So the Microsoft hardware was actually developed by Pete Schwann, who is now working for Tidepool, and he is also the current maintainer of DIY Loop. We estimate there are around 1,000 to 2,500 people using Loop today. And like I said, we love Loop. Most of us are using Loop ourselves. So we kicked off a project to build and support an FDA-regulated version of Loop that should be available in the iOS App Store, intended to work with commercially available instant pumps and CGMs. Now, we don't typically talk about pre-release software because this is something that is still in development. But we announced this project in October of last year so that we can support efforts to build our team in order to get the people that we need in order to deliver Loop. Since then, we've already doubled in size. We're going to add another 3 to 5 people before the end of March. We've also already announced our first device partner. Diabeloop will be working with future versions of Insulet's Omnipod system. And at the end of the day, then basically all that you would need is the Insulet Omnipod system as well as a CGM and your iPhone. We are working we will in future address Android as well, but at the moment, since the existing Loop code is already there, we're focusing on iOS first. We also do have plans for international availability, but I should note we're focusing on our FDA submission first. The goal here is choice and interoperability. We want to work with as many pumps, as many CGMs as possible, and maybe even in future multiple algorithms that you can use with Loop. Now, there's currently an observational study going on being run by the Jade Center for Health and Research for people who are currently using or planning to use DIY Loop, and it's evaluating the safety and efficacy of the Loop algorithm, amongst other things. So we're currently talking to the FDA, and as we'd like to think of ourselves as a very transparent company, all of the documentation that we've supplied to the FDA is available on tidepool.org/loop, including all the progress updates and things you will find there, as well as our meeting minutes from conversations that we've had with the FDA. So you can read all about that, tidepool.org/loop. You can follow us at tidepool_on Twitter. Thanks.
Here you go. So we have a few minutes for some questions. So here is a question.
Working. I'll just I'm not someone with type 1 diabetes, I'm a paediatrician up in Scotland. So most of my children that we deal with are sort of criteria for putting them on CGM. All are under 5s. We are quite happy to prescribe CGM because of the difficulties of obviously being able to detect hypos and if the parents wanting to keep a monitor overnight. So it makes sense for us if we've got all our under 5s on CGM to put them onto closed loop systems that are coming onto market. We're slightly disappointed that the Medtronic 670 isn't licensed for under 7. that obviously rules out a lot of our patients. And my question is to license for over 7s, actually other companies, are your products going to be licensed for under?
Yeah, so I can't say for certainty what we're going to be coming up with in terms of licensing. Memory recalls the system is actually full. We are actually working on it, and the system is available as we can. The centres don't have the age restriction on them, making it an ideal system for these young children. And once we go down 0 basal rates, so it does make sense for us to try and get the system as accessible as possible across all age ranges.
As far as we'll start walking before running, we've got a pediatric study that's upcoming that will be 6 to 11. That's going to be coming up shortly, and then we'll look at lower after that, but one step at a time. We're not sure.
Yeah, and as our system is still in development, we're working on our FDA submission. I don't have anything for you right yet, but yeah, have a look at the Tidepool.org/loop website.
Hi, just a question about the Tidepool development. What's the vision about the end product? Is it something that user will need to buy the algorithm? I'm just thinking about whether this will be the end of the sort of open APS community and this will be what will replace it, or whether it will become a commercially available option.
Right, so Tidepool at the end of the day will be an iPhone app. We are not at the moment planning on charging for it to end users. So we're not planning on killing off the DIY loop community. We think these are things that can run in parallel. So we will have DIY loop, we will have Tidepool loop, we will have open APS. The goal behind Tidepool loop is to have an iPhone app in the App Store that you can download and use with commercially available instant pumps and CGMs. Over. Shout.
This is kind of a general question, but I'm an Android APS user. I don't use the game system, and the other ones do. The question is, how, as all this amazing new stuff comes onto the market, how can you, as companies, help patients choose which system to use? You're going to need some fun. Very clearly, they say you have this, you have that. You've got to sign up for 4 years, and you can't sign up for you use it. If you're going to attach your life to an algorithm and make one of them work better than another one, how can you help patients make that choice?
First of all, I think that part of the community today, there's a lot of people that have opinions on it, so that's the first piece of information that is going to come out. Right now, there's that initial piece of hardware that you need to buy that's kind of a barrier. We're possibly looking into a monthly fee later on that would let people try for shorter periods of time. But it's not exactly easy with the whole, initial training and initial piece of hardware, etc. It's an ideal, but there's a few barriers in practice to do that and let people try it for 1 month. I think in practice it's about probably being as transparent as possible, and there's going to be feedback from the community anyway that's going to have opinions and numbers together.
Okay, I'm going to just have one quick question, short answers, because our 5-minute break turned into a half-an-hour break. So I'll start with yourselves, Tidepool. We have had conversations with you, me, Emma. We've had emails talking with our national hats on. When are you going to come to the UK?
So we're currently working on CE marking for our regular Tidepool software. We are also in talks to get Loop as CE marked eventually. But of course, for Tidepool Loop, our first focus is the FDA submission. And once it's regulated by the FDA, then the CE marking for that will come after that.
Once you're ready, let us know. Same question for W. I mean, we have spoken about before at EASD what you guys are doing. I've said it's great. I would encourage that. Again, similar question. Where is the potential? People turn around and go, what are we doing in the UK? So my question back to you is that we are happy to engage, happy to talk. When are you coming?
There's a slight elephant in the room called Brexit.
India.
And to be absolutely brutally honest, we can't. We have good funding. We're growing really fast. We can address a number of European countries. We can't address them all at once. To be brutally transparent, let's first see how that Brexit pans out. And then keep engaging, talk about it, see how we can make it work. Currently, we can address a number of markets, but not every country at once. So, sorry.
No, I think the point I wanted to make is that we're open business. If you're ready. And last question for Medtronic. So obviously you've got development coming through, 670 exciting. We've seen the first patient in Leeds and the Fiona being put on it with very good outcomes, etc. So where do you stand with, let's say, NICE and other things? Technology appraisals and that sort of thing to make it. Are you as a company thinking of taking it forward to get it more embedded in the system, or is it just a straightforward, let's buy it and see where we go?
We've traditionally engaged with NICE and done this about some of these things. We've still got the DJ21 before, which was actually still on the vehicle. We then met the initial briefing on the 6th of June. So we won't go down that line still, but we get the recommendations. We know that the sensor image should be on the high plus VAs,
Yep.
Yep. That's what we're interested in. And what we're interested in is rather than the sensor, it's a secondary sensor.
Okay, thank you very much. And you haven't mentioned Brexit, so thank you. Right, thank you guys. A round of applause. So, as I said, we're running a little bit late, so I'll introduce the next panel quickly. Lunch will be similar time, but I'm sure you can grab your lunch and come back in and all that. I don't think you need an hour lunch. We can make it 40 minutes, I'm sure. So, the next session is actually it's a fantastic conglomeration of people. I mean, first of all, we got Elizabeth Robertson from Diabetes UK, we've got Rachel O'Connor from JDRF, and I think it's fantastic to see all the main charities doing so much work on research, so much work together collaboratively. And I think that's fantastic that they're all here. We were grateful that they came last year. We're grateful they're here this year. And I think we have always taken a lot of pride in our relationships with both Diabetes UK and JDRF, how we work. So they will be obviously on the panel. So do you want to come on? And we probably need one more chair. Then we have Roman Hovorka. Is there anybody who hasn't heard of Roman Hovorka? Right, where is Roman?
I'm here.
Roman, in the diabetes world, we colloquially call him God. So, no, before you say anything, so I think Roman is an inspiration for a lot of people in our life, what he does for type 1 diabetes, and very humble man, never says much about him, but it's an absolute honor to have him here today. Then we have Pratik Choudhary. Has anybody not heard of Pratik? So Pratik is a very good friend of mine, and I think somebody who I respect a lot with his views and opinions. And I think in the policy role, you always need to have allies you can turn to and ask a very simplistic question, get some sort of sensible answer. Pratik tries most times. But it's an absolute pleasure, a very good long-time friend and absolute delight. And the final person we have is Lala from Manchester. Now, some of you may not have heard of him. That's because Lala is Lala. And I'll tell you why he's on the panel. According to the National Diabetes Audits, in the country, about 29% of people get to an HbA1c of about 58 or 7.5. Nice, you should get there, right? 29%. Lala Centre, led by Lala, it's the 40s. The top centre, the only centre in the country which achieves that with the numbers more than 200 patients. So there are lots of centres that smaller numbers, a couple of others, but with that bulk. And that's a feat in itself. So that's one reason he's probably one of the top diabetologists, type 1 experts in the country. So, and he's come all the way from Manchester, not being detected by this thing called snow. Some southerners couldn't turn up. So thank you very much, and I'll let Liz and Rachel take the session away. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Great, thanks, Martha. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, what we thought we'd do is Rachel and I will do a very quick introduction to what we've been doing within our charities, and then we've got some questions for our three speakers, and hopefully we'll have time for questions from the floor at the end. So if I can start, so for those of you that know Diabetes UK, one of the many things we do is fund research, and over the last 10 years we've invested about 35 million in type 1 research, which is fantastic. Some of the things we've done, for those of you who were here last year, you saw Helen Murphy, and we funded her work in looking at closed loop within pregnancy setting, and we also fund some very major work. For example, we fund the type 1 immunotherapy consortium, which is helping to bring immunotherapy trials to the UK, which is fantastic. More recently, we funded Lala to lead on a trial in FLASH with adults with type 1 to start to look at all sorts of measures of the efficacy of FLASH, which we're really excited about. And the other area we're really interested in is thinking about the future. So we've set up something which groups of people, healthcare professionals, people living with diabetes, researchers, to help us to think about where are the gaps in research, if there's something we need, and obviously technology plays a big part in that. So if there's anybody in the room who's interested in that, please come and talk to us.
Hello, I'm Rachel, Director of Research Partnerships at JDRF in the UK. Most of you will probably know that JDRF is an international organisation, so we don't just fund research here in the UK, but all around the world, wherever those best projects might be. So I always say this, if all the best type 1 diabetes researchers, say these guys, happen to move away from the UK and they decide to go to Timbuktu, that's where our funding will go to, because we are in the business of making the fastest progress for people with type 1 diabetes that we can, and we believe that that is not an initiative that can be limited by borders or currencies that we have to work within. What do we do in the diabetes technology space? Probably quite a lot. We have been funding pancreas and technology work for many years now. All of these guys sitting up here have in one way or another been funded by us in the past and currently. So we're doing quite a lot. We're also working closely, you've heard from Roche and from Tidepool already, companies that we are working with. So those FDA submissions and those behind the scenes conversations which are important in the regulatory environment. JDRF's there too, because it's not just about funding the research, it's about making sure that the outcomes of those research can make it to real people living with type 1 diabetes, so that's why we're in the advocacy space as well. I'm going to shut up now, and I think we're going to ask our first questions to our eminent panellists. So, first one's an easy one. You should all be able to answer this very quickly. What are we working on in type 1 diabetes research at the moment? Roman, go.
Hello everybody. Can you hear me on this mic? So what we've been fortunate enough to have sufficient funding, which I shouldn't be saying, but I can have it again, happy to say it, to work on clinical trials across from the age of 1 year old until 6 plus. So we have ongoing number of clinical studies which we are evaluating close to 2 to 7 years old, 6 to 18 years old, and also adults, and then we have 60 plus, so we're going all the way through. And we'll be working with Helen Murphy also in pregnancy as well, and we are using for that our new closed loop prototype, which is using G6, Android phone, and Lala pump, and that's something which we developed, and we are thinking about CE marking as well. So is going through collecting evidence of the benefits of CEPA for reimbursement widely across all these population, and also for trying to commercialize it. Yeah. The other study which I did mention is that we're actually doing closed loop studies also in newly diagnosed 10 to 18 year old. We have about 44 participants enrolled, and some of them have been on the closed loop up to 2 years now. So it's an exciting study, and we are looking how people very early from the technologies can benefit as well. We got funding for another 3 years, so we will have follow-up for 4 years on closed loop on diagnosis. It will still take another 2 years to get them through, and we will be recruiting up to 96 participants in that study. So we are busy as a side, and I have a dedicated team, which I'm grateful. Also, thank you for the funding which we received over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's what I'm going to make a point that people in the audience, the way you support JDRF in the UK is crucial for their support to us and our researchers is here now to look together. So we're working with the UK and JDRF in the part of putting together the tech pathway that might help people get access to the technology and all the background to get that to be we finished off with the UK recently. That's really covered. We put kind of a large EU consortium because actually one of the things that those of you who moved from fingerprint testing to CGM might have noticed is there's loads of times when CGM is low. Even those with supposedly very good awareness of fingerprint testing don't really feel. And the suggestion is that 50% of CGM those maybe the patient may be unaware of. And so one of the big questions we're trying to answer with what we're working on now is what is the impact of these CGM lows? What should the definition of accuracy be? Because now rather than just having a single number, you've got a number and a duration. And is that different over 90 and how it impacts mood and sleep and anxiety? So that's something we're working on with the help of DUK and JDRF. We also have done a lot of work and still working on the impact on the brain of hypoglycemia and how the brain responds to it and why some people don't lose their awareness of hypoglycemia. And then the other thing that we have been partly involved in the UK, we tried to work in the project with Diabetes UK, that so one reason for the backwards vision, but I'm sure is of interest to people in the audience is around cellular therapy. So at King's we have one of the islet transplant labs, and we do islet transplants for some people, and we're working with people in that field, so how do you deliver stem cells or islets to people without having the risk of suppression and just for people who are interested in that. People can make cells in the lab that deliver insulin, and to some extent they can deliver insulin with some of the sensitivity that my pancreas has, for example. When you deliver that to someone, if you have to be able to, at the moment the thinking is you have to deliver it in a way that if those cells die off, you can take them out and replace them, or if they go rogue and start delivering insulin without depending on the glucose, you can take them out as well. That's where most people are thinking about, and so to do it that way, you're going to have a delivery device that will put the cells in, put them into the body, and then if they stop working, or they don't work the way you want to, you can replace them too. So that's where cellular therapy is moving. These devices, we are trying to set up with one of the companies that decided to come to fruition. There's another device called Bioscience, which is in this family. Again, they found delivering the cells, delivering was very challenging, and they had to make holes in their device, which uses expression, because it's exposing people to the cells from somebody else. So in the cellular, so that's an area that we're working on.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we are currently working on a number of technical studies in type 1 diabetes. Two of these studies are focused on sensors. So as already mentioned, the large UK trials are very excited about the study. This is focusing on people with suboptimal control of experiencing 7.5 to 11%. So those people may not be able to diagnose these guidelines. So we're hoping to generate the evidence that will help really life-changing many, and we collect lots of other data as well in addition to like what affects the quality of life and what other benefits that is. And the study is planned by a group of teams, including MRI and several other across the UK. Second study, we are focusing on children, young adults between 16 to 24. Again, we know this group really have often very high HbA1c levels. We're using a Dexcom G6 system to see whether we can improve in terms of artificial pancreas studies, I'm very fortunate to work with them for the years, and I continue to work with them very closely. So we've got 3 artificial pancreas studies about to start this year, so one of the studies we
when you compare current lower rapid with fast acting GLP-1s in the research facility, trying to make a situation where somebody miss a meal bonus or have an underestimation of carbohydrates, when the closed loop efficiency goes in faster spark and better than the spark. But also comparing this and also with the closed loop trial in Diabeloop over the 60 years, specific group, and also look at the algorithm, the link. So that's been a main focus. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, second question. Obviously, tech research and Type 1 is a global effort. So, looking back over the last year, in your view, what do you think has been the biggest risk?
But again, I think for me, G6 getting on the market, non-calibrating center is really making a difference. It's driving other companies to move in there, otherwise they will be out. And they move into UK as well has been, I think, a major push for the technology and also for the whole area. And then the other thing is, again, I'm AP guy, and I think 670 hitting UK market and being huge widely in the US. I think the generation 0 closed loop system, but again, it can set the level where we want to go right now. So I think these are the two things. And maybe play at other things, one more thing, which is probably more than 1 year old. In the US, despite all the other things, the Congress, I think they gave the NIH, was it $300 million for the next 3-4 years for research? And this will drive research in the US, and it will have an impact what's happening here as well. And I just want to see, as you as a community, everybody else, we don't have this EMARC research money for Type 1 diabetes. It is not, this type of money is not available in the UK for the national agencies. The JDRF Diabetes UK taking a charity money to fund the research, but there is no EMARC research for this type of things. You as a community could help to change it. You could write the USDs, you could write it, and it's possible through the NIHR to create a specific program for Type 1 diabetes technology. It does not happen. And I'm just sort of saying you could in the same way in the US, because in the US they gave the money because the congressmen were pushed by the community to do so, like JDRF. And it's already posted here, but if we could, you are the one who can help in that. Thank you.
It's the biggest growth for profit statement. The conversation that we're having, we learn so much more from our projects part of the set up learning which has very good absolutely will not
Excuse me, would you mind holding the mic a little closer because we're not really hearing it very clearly back on the video screen.
Okay. So, did you catch that? Did you repeat? Yes,
actually, I haven't really much to add to what Ron speaks. And I think ability to monitor glucose without having to do things like painful things measurement, to me, is the single biggest important change in managing diabetes. I've seen so much stories in the clinic how people say how life-changing that experience is, and I think that's the single biggest change. And after that, I think we having automated systems that takes it further and automate the glucose management, because you know, even with the availability of sensors, people still have quite variable insulin requirements from day to day, and the only real way to deal with this is to automate the system. And every night you have different insulin requirements, and you really only can do it with automation. So I think these two things are the biggest change.
Okay, so final question falls to me. We have a clue in the title, which is biggest challenges facing technology research for people with type 1 diabetes. In the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think the the barriers might be, and what would you like help in addressing?
I've been working across a number of countries in this space, and indeed we have about 15 or 20 collaborating sites in the UK and also outside UK, and we're doing clinical trials on arterial pancreas. What I'm realizing is that people want closed loop system. I'm not sure about the healthcare professionals are aware of what the system can do and how they can help. And I think arranging equitable access to this technology, not just reimbursement, which is an issue number one, but also that the healthcare professionals can manage and support it, not just to you because you know how to use it. You don't need in principle healthcare professionals, but there are many more people who don't. And moving this change to the way which can be sort of managed and people, healthcare professionals are able to support people with type 1 diabetes. I think that will be a big challenge. You can have a technology, if you can't use it, there's no benefit of it. And the other one, I think, the other challenge is, I think it will take probably more than 3 to 5 years. There is a current rate in the UK, 10% or 12% people on the pump. They are the one currently who could use the closed loop system, which I think is the best thing to do. How to improve this 10%, how to move it higher, how to enable this technology to be used more widely. I think is a challenge. I don't know whether I can answer it, but these companies who develop closed loop systems, again, if Tidepool wants to do it free, that's absolutely fine. I don't know how long they can survive funding for improvements and doing clinical trials. I don't think they can. And for these things to develop, there needs to be a usage and benefits, and it needs to expand beyond this 10%. How it's going to happen, I don't know, but that's one of the things which worries me a little bit.
I guess the challenge over the next, the challenges over the next 3 to 5 years, I think what we've learned from the implementation of Libre in the last year is that the layers of bureaucracy that we have to bang our heads against, and I think just let me say that the healthcare professionals share your frustration many times, and how that can be cleared up is one thing. The second thing actually is going to be, it's kind of a health economic argument actually, because we've got to remember, we have so many conversations in clinic about, well, I've got my A1C from 7.5 to 6.5, and obviously having a pump and a sensor should be cost effective, and actually the bottom line is, given current information, it isn't. The raw numbers are, and so an understanding of how stuff is funded, and the fact that when you're going for this, actually at that nice level, funding, you're competing against a cancer drug, you're competing against a drug for multiple sclerosis, and then it's okay, it's $5,000 a year for the rest of your, for 60 years, and then the health economic benefits. So I think as a community we need to develop and understand those health benefit measures and calculate them so we can communicate them better to industry. And there is a thought that, we always, as clinicians, have this quandary. The current guidelines support, if you're above a certain level, then because you're at a higher risk for problems, it's more cost effective to give technology to those people. I'm sure Lala might share my view that sounds a little bit unfair. People working really hard getting to somewhere, and you want to support them getting better. Maybe that might promote things, which is the right way around. A group in Rotterdam, for example, if you get below 9%, then you get your pump, and if you get down below 7.5%, they land on the sensor, and it works the other way around. And I think the third thing is that whatever the technology does, people still have type 1 diabetes, and people still have machines attached to them that beep and buzz and fail and run through. And there's a lot of push and a lot of wording, optimism created by the group, and we've come across a handful of people where people are really struggling with their diabetes, struggling with the day-to-day fact, their identity of type 1 diabetes, and thinking that actually I can just plug these devices in and that will sort things out. And if they don't have the necessary skills and knowledge of how to use stuff when it doesn't work, if you're driving a Tesla self-driving, at the moment you need to know how to drive if we get into the car, and that's something that I think as a community of healthcare professionals we are anxious about, and I think Emma might touch on some of this when we talk about open APS and vision statements as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Again, I agree with the comments from Roman and Pratik, and maybe more immediate challenge, Rachel, if I may, is one of the things with some of the NHS research is this excess treatment cost, and for
for studies to happen, we still have to find money from the NHS for the cost of the device or the sensor and everything like that. But again, still, I think there are things happening, but still it is somewhat frustrating. Some researchers having to find to do these studies. I think the processes could be still streamlined in this regard. And I think we talked about the evolution of training. I think the next generation of doctors, I'm not entirely sure whether the kind of doctors get the real hands-on training if they're within the current years as well, because they're all pulled to various coming out. It's not easy these days to actually make this. I'm very fortunate that my job doesn't involve I'm purely doing type 1 diabetes, but that's a very
Just before we throw open to a few questions from the floor, if we've got time, looking for a time check? Yeah, we've got some time. I will say the other thing that we need is for people with type 1 to participate in research studies. None of the studies that we provide the funding for, with your help, and these guys conduct, can actually happen without people stepping forward and saying, yeah, I'll participate in that trial, which sometimes means a bit of extra effort, a bit of extra trips to the clinic, and so on. But none of this research evidence could happen without people with type 1 diabetes participating in trials. We don't have enough trials happening in the UK, but we want more and more, so keep asking in your clinics. Obviously, these guys' clinics run lots of trials, but other clinics don't really get engaged in that research. So keep asking them, keep getting them to think about research. We know that research active clinics generally seem to do a bit better. So the more research active clinics we have in the country, the better. Open to the floor for questions.
Hi, thanks, it's really useful. I just wanted to ask, what's happened with glucagon, or is it just too hard to do anything with pumps that would have glucagon in them as well?
Could you repeat that, please?
Glucagon is difficult.
Roman, do you want to just repeat the question? That's all right.
So the question is, what happened to glucagon and the dual hormone closed loop system? So there's the group, the ILET group around Ed Damiano, Stephen Russell. They create their own company, and they got a big grant. They got about, I think, 15 million from NIDDK to develop the system. They keep going, but their first product will be an insulin-only system. Surprise, surprise. So currently there's no glucagon available for continuous use. So room temperature stable glucagon. So the research is still ongoing, but I think after the initial hype, people realized that it is more challenging on the drug delivery. I just want to say there are other drugs as well, not just glucagon. So there are sort of other ways to improve glucose control. It's a mixture of glucagon with pramlintide. So that's being tested. You don't just need a single solution as well. And then so it's ongoing, but he was moved a little bit further down the road and can think about the money as well, which is another issue.
Just to add, I think, all of you are using a pump. Have you ever had a pump failure or a sat failure with unexplained high glucose readings, right? So I think that's one of the challenges with glucagon, that as Roman mentioned. It's just not stable in solution. At the moment, there are 3 companies that I'm aware of, that at the moment, those of you, and again, the companies are very bad at making sure people with type 1 diabetes have a glucagon to use. But if you have a glucagon, which everyone with type 1 diabetes should have somewhere in their house, you all know that at the moment when you need it, for someone else to be able to mix it up and deliver it is a huge challenge, and that's because it's not stable in solution. So there are 3 companies that I'm aware of that have published small studies that have a liquid glucagon available, and of course the end game for that is that it should be able to be used in a pump, but even those systems, to my mind, aren't stable for more than 24 hours. So you'd have to change it every 24 hours. That might be, so that's a challenge with glucagon. The marginal benefit, the complexity, to me sounds too much.
I think the one in my fridge went out of date in 2016 as well. So I'm
sure a common story in the room. Are there any more questions from the floor?
Please.
I'd just like to pick up on the point you make, Pratik, about making the evidence from studies more convincing for people out there. And I'm very aware from talking to hundreds of people that the well-being, the sense of well-being, the quality of life improvements that we have from Chris at the beginning are so huge. When research studies are done, why isn't there some good way, better way, some way of measuring that? Why isn't it taken more seriously?
It's a really good, and actually, I'm sure any study that we have done in the last 4 or 5 has involved quality of life measures. Okay, so that's the first, is that the clinicians and researchers and industry always do look at quality of life measures. They go in. The question is about how you monetize those, change the quality of life. And I don't know if Roman might know a little bit more about this, but as you learn more about how that's done, the way it's done is sort of they give a scenario. Let's say that we want to find out what the quality of life impact is of a glucose level of 2, that you have to stop what you're doing and treat. Okay? And so what they do is, the way they do that across different conditions is they ask a bank of people, this is the scenario, you have to stop what you're doing, you feel sweaty, shaky, you feel rough for a while, and you have to treat it this way. So how many years of your life would you give up never to have this? And they can't ask that question to someone with the condition because they're biased. Right? So that is the standard way, that, and you could think that's about multiple sclerosis, that's going to Parkinson's disease, that's going across conditions. And that's the way they work that out. Now, the trouble with those sort of things is, if you get a tool that works across all the conditions, because that's what you need at that top level, where Parkinson's fights for funding for diabetes, it's got to work across all the conditions. And those tools then become so non-specific that they don't pick up the minutiae of the stuff that is valuable to you guys. And I think that's a challenge that the quality of life PRO, patient-reported outcomes group, have in our studies saying, you've got a low sense of glucose, what does that mean? Well, we ask questions that, we develop questions that we think are important to you, and the PRO guy says this is irrelevant because this will not stand in front of a health economic board that is funding money. So that's the disconnect that I think, organisations like DUK, JDRF, and the academics in this field will work on.
I just second that the standard tools for measuring quality of life are too crude. Again, the question is, can you walk the step up? Can you go walk the steps? Can you get out of the bed? And create a bit close loop. There's no change in that. So we're working with psychologists. They do interviews. How to monetize it. I know there was a program also from JDRF funded. How do you monetize? How do you capture all these benefits of using technology? So people trying hard. It is difficult because the existing models don't have it, and it's one of the research which would be needed. And I think it'd be interesting. Yeah. So we try to involve also the community. With few, there are that many psychologists who knows this, all these details. In the UK, there are about 2 or 3 we can work with because those people need to know it as well. So we're trying hard, but it is difficult. I'm not sure we can get the best picture we could at this moment. We are aware. Thank you.
Okay, I think for the purpose of actually keeping to some sort of time, we're going to end this session, unless any burning question. So a couple of things to mention, that is in view of the research. So people always ask us, what is the point of doing research if nothing's going to happen? Yep. What's the point of spending so much money? Why do you invest? Why bother going through a research? You as hyperdiabetes go to centres, as somebody said, they go, what happened after that? Nothing. Okay. So I think there's a couple of things which people need to also bear in mind. So if you look at what we have published from NHS England, we talked about research such as the concept trial, which showed improvement in pregnancy. If you've got type 1 diabetes, put on a CGM, your outcomes are better. And we have made a commitment from 2020, everybody who's pregnant who's got diabetes will get that. And that's a clear link from, bless you, thank you. We don't get that much. But I think it's important, there's also the other thing like the low-calorie diet and the type 2 diabetes that's direct. They are genuine randomized controlled trials which we have brought into policy. So I think if there's good enough story, which I think also goes back to the point that was made about why do we need research? Because you can imagine we are bombarded by anecdotes. That's what we get. Do you know if you tried cinema? And you sit in there going, maybe maybe I shouldn't do that as national policy. And I'm overrating the whole debate, but if we do get it all the time, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I think it's important that you all do contribute to research work that is being done, led by these sort of individuals. Because for us, me and Jonathan Banerjee, we work together, it's important for us to sit down and go, actually, this has got return of investment. And I think the quality of measure, like that is very important. The debate that we always have is that in a setting beyond research, beyond our world of type 1, we know what will improve your quality of life. We'd love to use that. But when you're sitting in a very neutral zone, what improves your quality of life is a matter of debate, isn't it? Copy improves your quality of life. It does, doesn't it? Netflix improves your quality of life. The point is, what is investment and what is quality of life? If I say to you, you can have a holiday every year in Malta, do you want that? Or do you want to go to an education program every year? I can absolutely guarantee, I don't know about you in London, Portsmouth, I know where this is going, right? But again, I think it's an important discussion to have. What is quality is very different for different people. So I think that's where research always struggles with that. But I think I reiterate the point to make about research. If you want to make fundamental changes in policy from NHS England, and we have shown evidence that we can do it, we need to contribute to that level of research for it to actually for us to put it into play. Because there are people from NHS England in the room here, and they will know the debates we have had, the debates we have to convince people about return of investment before we can actually put that. It is taxpayers' money. Don't forget that at the end of the day, and I'll finish with that, there's only two people who sits in front of Parliamentary Select Committee, me and Jonathan. Why did you give £20,000 of taxpayers' money to your mate, Pratik? That's a very difficult question. I haven't done that, by the way. Break for lunch, and let's try and come back here for one issue there about to turn back in time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Brexit.